The air in Kazan was cool that June morning, carrying the scent of rain and the distant echo of tram bells. For Dmitry Ivanov, it was a morning he thought he would remember only for joy. The day of graduation. He stood before the cracked mirror in his small bedroom, adjusting the dark gown that hung awkwardly from his shoulders. His mother watched him from the kitchen doorway, her tired smile both proud and worried. Dmitry had always been the difficult one, the boy who asked too many questions, the boy who challenged every rule. Yet here he was, ready to walk across the stage and collect his diploma. The ride to the school hall was filled with silence. His father gripped the steering wheel with knuckles white against the leather, while his younger sister hummed a tune in the back seat. Dmitry stared out of the window, at the streets of a city, the golden domes of the churches catching the light, the Volga River glistening beyond. This was his home, yet he longed for something more, something beyond the gray buildings and rigid voices that had shaped him. When they arrived, the hall was already alive with sound. Families filled the wooden benches, mothers clutching bouquets, fathers straightening ties. The scent of polished floors and fresh carnations hung in the air. On the stage stood Sergei Petrovich, the principal. His sharp eyes scanned the crowd as if counting every breath, every movement. The students lined up, nervous laughter bouncing between them. Dmitry joined the line, his heart drumming against his ribs. He looked down at the tassel on his cap, brushing it between his fingers as though it were a thread tying him to this moment. And then, as the music swelled and the line began to move towards the stage, he felt it. The weight of a gaze. Strong. Unshakable. He lifted his eyes. Sergei Petrovich was staring directly at him. Not with pride. Not with warmth. But with something else. Something unreadable. Dmitry tried to push the thought aside, yet the look clung to him. A silent warning. A shadow cast upon a day that should have been filled only with light. The line moved forward. Step by step, closer to the stage. Closer to the unknown. The music filled the hall, a steady march of violins and brass, echoing against the high ceiling. Parents leaned forward on the benches, phones in their hands, ready to capture the perfect moment. One by one, students walked across the stage, their names called, their futures sealed. Dmitry's turn was drawing closer. He tried to steady his breath, but each step forward only tightened the knot in his stomach. He could feel Sergei Petrovich's eyes still fixed on him, following his movements, weighing every gesture. A whisper traveled down the line. Some students noticed it too. They glanced at Dmitry, then at the principal, then back again. Murmurs grew like a ripple across the hall. Why was he watching Dmitry so closely? What had Dmitry done? The thought struck him with sudden force. Perhaps something had gone wrong with his records. Perhaps he was not meant to graduate. He remembered the arguments with teachers, the warnings, the long afternoons in the headmaster's office. His chest burned with fear. The student ahead of him stepped onto the stage, shook hands, and received thunderous applause. Dmitry was next. He straightened his gown, forced a smile, and prepared to take a step. Then it happened. Sergei Petrovich lifted his hand. A small gesture, but enough to silence the whispers. His voice, low yet commanding, cut through the music. Dmitry Ivanov. Step out of the line. The entire hall froze. Dmitry felt the world tilt beneath him, the eyes of hundreds pressing down. His throat turned dry. Slowly, with the weight of shame pressing into his shoulders, he stepped aside. The music faltered. The whispers grew louder. His parents rose slightly from their seats, confusion etched on their faces. His sister's small voice carried faintly across the hall. What is happening to Dima? But no one had an answer. Only Sergei Petrovich, standing tall, eyes unblinking, holding Dmitry in place as if he were a soldier awaiting his sentence. For a heartbeat, Dmitry could not move. The polished floor beneath his shoes felt as if it might swallow him whole. Every sound in the hall had dimmed into a thick silence, broken only by the thudding of his own heart. The line of students shifted forward without him. A girl he knew from his literature class gave him a quick glance, half pity, half fear, then stepped onto the stage where the applause returned as though nothing had happened. Yet for Dmitri, the sound was muffled, like hearing a celebration through water. Sergei Petrovich gestured again, firmer this time. "Step here." Dmitri obeyed. His legs felt heavy, each step pulling him further away from the certainty of graduation and deeper into something darker, unknown. He stopped at the side of the stage, only a few paces from the principal, close enough to see the deep lines carved into the man's face, close enough to notice the steadiness of his gaze. The whispers around the hall turned into waves. Parents leaned towards one another. Teachers exchanged glances. A group of boys at the back stifled nervous laughter. Dmitri could feel his name rolling through the crowd like smoke. His father had risen completely now, gripping the back of the bench as if preparing to storm the stage. But his mother reached for his arm, holding him back. They both stared at their son, powerless, waiting. Dmitri tried to speak, but his throat refused to open. All he could do was stand there, trapped under the weight of Sergei Petrovich's silence. Then, at last, the principal leaned closer, his voice low but cutting through the air like a blade. "You think you are ready to leave this school, but are you ready to face yourself?" Dmitri's eyes widened. He wanted to demand answers, to shout back, but no words came. Only confusion, only fear. And before he could even grasp the meaning, the next student's name was called. The ceremony continued. The world moved on. But Dmitri remained at the edge, singled out, on display, as if awaiting a verdict that might change everything. The hall was alive with murmurs. Teachers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, parents leaned forward to catch every word, and students tried to keep their eyes ahead while stealing glances at Dmitri. He could feel his name being spoken again and again. Some voices carried sympathy, others carried scorn. To them, he was no longer just another graduate. He was a spectacle. Dmitri stood at the side of the stage, the music and applause continuing as if he were invisible. Yet he was not invisible. He was the center of the storm. His mind raced back through every decision of the past year. The arguments with the history teacher, when he questioned the textbooks. The protest he had led when the school tried to cancel the theater program. The meetings in Sergei Petrovich's office where words grew sharp, where threats of expulsion hung in the air. Perhaps this was punishment. Perhaps this was the day the principal would strip everything away. But Sergei Petrovich did not look triumphant. He did not look angry. His face remained unreadable, his eyes fixed firmly on Dmitri as if searching for something beneath the boy's fear. And as the final names were called, Dmitri felt time closing in. The ceremony was reaching its end. Soon, everyone would know why he had been pulled aside. Soon, his fate would no longer be his own. The applause thundered as the last student received a diploma. The music reached its peak. Families rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, tossing flowers into the air. All except Dmitri's family. His father, Ivan, could no longer hold back. He strode to the aisle, his heavy steps echoing across the wooden floor. His voice, deep and furious, cut through the celebration. "What is this, Sergei Petrovich? Why do you humiliate my son?" The hall fell silent again. Hundreds of eyes turned from the stage to the confrontation. Dmitri wanted to disappear, to be anywhere but here. The principal did not flinch. His voice remained steady. "Please sit down, Ivan. This matter concerns your son and his choices, not yours." His father's face turned red, his fists clenched at his sides. But before he could shout again, Dmitri's mother pulled at his sleeve. Her whisper was firm. "Not here. Do not shame him more." Reluctantly, Ivan stepped back, but his eyes burned with rage. Dmitri lowered his head. Shame prickled through him like fire. Sergei Petrovich turned back to Dmitri. His words, spoken softly but heard by all, carried the weight of judgment. "You are not here to be punished. You are here to be tested." The stage emptied. Students returned to their seats, diplomas in hand, while Dmitri remained standing beside the principal. Sergei Petrovich stepped closer, lowering his voice so that only Dmitri could hear, yet the tension in the hall made it feel as if every ear was listening. "Courage," he said. You have shown it in ways that angered your teachers. You challenged authority, you questioned rules, you refused silence. That is why you are here now. I must decide if you are to cross the stage at all. Dimitri's breath caught. His hands trembled at his sides. What do you mean? He whispered. The principal's eyes narrowed. I mean that a diploma is not just paper. It is a symbol of what you carry into the world. You claim to stand for truth, for justice, for change. Then show me now, before them all, that your courage is not only in rebellion, but in restraint, in dignity. Dimitri's stomach turned. This was not the humiliation he had feared. It was something more dangerous. It was a demand for proof, here under the gaze of the entire hall. The hall grew unbearably quiet. Dimitri could hear the creak of the wooden benches as families leaned forward, the rustle of gowns, the faint hum of the lights above. His chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. He wanted to scream, to defend himself, to shout that this was unfair. Yet Sergei Petrovich's words echoed in his mind. Courage not only in rebellion, but in restraint. His father's eyes urged him to fight. His mother's eyes begged him to stay calm. His sister sat with her small hands clasped together, whispering his name under her breath. The silence stretched. Each second was heavier than the last. The longer he stood without speaking, the greater the tension grew. And then, with a steady inhale, Dimitri lifted his chin. His voice rang out, firm and clear. I will not shout. I will not fight. I have made mistakes, but I have also stood for what I believed. If you wish to deny me this diploma, then deny it. But do not think you will silence me. Gasps rippled through the hall. Sergei Petrovich's expression did not change, yet his eyes flickered with something almost human, almost proud. For a long moment, the principal said nothing. The hall was a cage of suspense. Dimitri felt sweat trickle down his temple, his fists still clenched though his voice had steadied. Then Sergei Petrovich stepped forward, his hand raised. The gesture silenced the whispers instantly. Dmitri Ivanov, he declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall, today you have shown the strength to stand without defiance and the courage to speak without fear. That is the mark of a man who will face the world beyond these walls. You will graduate. Relief washed through Dmitri like a tide, yet his body remained frozen. It was only when the audience erupted into applause, uncertain yet growing louder, that he allowed himself to breathe. His father exhaled sharply, his anger dissolving into pride. His mother wept softly, pressing her hands to her face. His sister leapt to her feet, clapping louder than anyone else. Sergei Petrovich reached into the pile of diplomas, lifted one, and held it out. Come forward, Dmitri. The distance from the shadows to the center of the stage felt endless. Dimitri's legs shook with every step, yet each movement grew steadier. The hall was no longer whispering. It was alive with sound, with applause, with something that felt almost like respect. He reached Sergei Petrovich, who placed the diploma firmly into his hands. Their eyes met for the briefest moment. No words were spoken, yet an understanding passed between them. Dmitri turned to face the audience. The lights blinded him, but he could hear the roar of the crowd, the thunder of clapping hands, the voices calling his name. For the first time that day, he smiled. He lifted the diploma high above his head. The sound grew louder still. At that moment, it was not just paper. It was not just proof of graduation. It was proof that he had endured, that he had been tested and had not broken. The ceremony ended with music swelling through the hall. Students tossed their caps into the air, laughter filling the space where tension had once lived. Dmitri stood at the back, diploma clutched tightly in his hand. His friends surrounded him, some congratulating, others still whispering in disbelief about what had happened. He looked towards the doors of the hall. Beyond them lay the city, the world, the uncertain road of his future. For the first time, he was not afraid. As he stepped outside, the cool evening air embraced him. The streets of Kazan stretched before him, alive with voices, lights, and possibilities. He glanced back once more. Sergei Petrovich stood in the doorway, watching him leave. Not with suspicion, not with anger, but with the quiet pride of a man who had seen a boy cross the threshold into something greater. And with that, Dmitri walked forward. Into the night. Into the unknown. Into the beginning of everything.